Well, if this is rallying up to 2% ahead of CPI, what is that telling you? Okay, folks, let's just jump right into it. We have a lot to cover. So first and foremost, CrowdStrike came out with earnings. You ran right to this level, this 193.48 level, and you're rejecting. But if we get through this, we could get to this 205 level. Now, whether or not this continues to stay up is going to depend, to me, on the macro data. The CPI number tomorrow is really going to drive the entire market and demand. If the CPI comes in decent, you could see these kinds of stocks that are coming out with exceptional earnings run. Now, you've had some blowups tonight too, and we'll get into those. But if you take a look at CrowdStrike's earnings, 22 to 24 cents a share is their next guidance on 465 million. We were looking for 17 cents and 440. So they're just knocking the absolute cover off the ball. And they're looking to exceed over $2 billion in revenue for the first time. So we're up about 15% right now on the name, and it looks great. What I would look for tomorrow is getting over this 193.48, get over that, and then we could watch how we act at this 205, 206 level. If we push through there, we could get up to this 225 in time. This could take some time for it to develop, but it looks really good. Now, as far as travel and what's going on in the world, we saw this bounce. And when we saw the bounce, the gap up. So in other words, we close here, we reverse, we close here, we gap up, we hit the 8-day on Expedia, and we reject. Look at the volume today on this move. It's below average volume, and stay to the end because we're going to go through the indexes. You see what you're focused on here? You basically have a shooting star down. So if you flip this level tomorrow, and this level is very simple trade, 173. Now remember, patterns repeat themselves. So when you see these kinds of patterns, just like you did here, once they break, you can see how they can move, right? Doesn't matter what the stock is, what they do, patterns repeat themselves. If you remember that, you'll do quite well. So if you can break this right here, this 173 level, you can head back down. This can go back down to lows. I don't know if we're going to see these talks end, or I'm hopeful that we see that these talks amount to something. If they don't, and this progresses, this is going to completely reverse, and that's the level that I would use in order to get into the short position. Now, copper. Everybody wanted to be in copper about a week ago. Within the past 3 days, all of a sudden, people are not against copper, but are not thinking they want to be in the copper trade. I'm going to tell you that you're seeing a very specific pattern develop here. You're seeing the 21-day on a lot of these kinds of names hold. We saw steel hold today. We're seeing copper hold today. And we're seeing this in an environment where we're actually rallying in tech on, quote, peace talks. So I would really focus on these kinds of names. And I don't think that these are over by a long shot. Look at this, what we have transpiring today. This is a pretty clean wedge. So looking at something like this wedge, just getting above this higher high, 47.60, get above 47.60, and we could retest the top of this, which would take you about 50 and a half. Now, if you look at this a little further out, you're going to see some of these lines up here that you're trying to cross. Getting through these can get you to 54, 55, 61, 30. So I think this has massive potential. And to think that all of a sudden the copper trade's over, it's most likely not. I know we had some issues with nickel the other day, but overall, I think that this trade works. And I like the copper space a lot. And speaking of hitting the 21-day, focus on what's going on here. Look at this move. Look at how we came down to this level and we just sat right there. Now, on top of sitting right there, what we're doing, 21-day, again, you see the pattern? If you keep looking for patterns, they're there. We came right to the 21-day and we held. This is really simple. If we can hold this 1090 level, I would be looking at adding around here. But you have to take into account that this could take some time to work itself back up. You have a wedge. So this is going to take some time to build. If you don't have the time to build, then you might want to look at something like this that had a really good day. So Oxy had an excellent day. You have a bullish engulfing. That's when this bar has completely encapsulated the bar next to it, which is what's transpired here. 58.77, 1, 2, 3. We bonked there 3 times. Flipping that level, and we could see this push much higher. If you're looking for something a little more shorter term than the BPT. So now, as far as outright disasters, Asan, their earnings tonight were just awful. The key takeaway is the earnings per share loss. So we were looking for a loss of 27 cents. They're coming in at 35.36. Their guidance is not near the high end. They're basically low to middle end guidance. They're the key takeaways. How's the stock responding? Because of that, it's down 39 82, and you're sitting right at these levels. Now, what I like to do with these kinds of names is drill into them after hours and look at the first 15 minutes. The first 15 minutes of trading can tell you a lot about a trade. So this is your level, and this is what I would watch. If you can hold here, you could use this as support, 38.80, and then see if you could trade up. If it breaks this 38.80 and we get a 15-minute bar that closes below this, all bets are off, and you could be looking at this on the short side. Frankly, for me, this is just an outright short on any rally. If you're coming out and you're having greater losses and you're guiding mid to low end of your range, it's not something that I want to be in, okay? And it's pretty clear. We saw this earlier with earnings back here. We had a drop here when Monday came out with earnings, MNDY. I don't know if you remember that or not, but we can just take a look at it really quickly. This is when MNDY came out with earnings, and you can see how Asan responded to that and then rallied back up, only to come down and take out those lows. Now, from where you're at, your next level of support is really this 35.05 level. So I'm more interested in it breaking that 38.80 and getting that trade off. Now, in regards to the indexes, I think it's really important to start with, technically, let's look at the Qs. And we're bidding up a little bit here after hours. I think we're up like about $1 if you want to chase it. I have zero interest in chasing this ahead of the CPI. To me, it feels like a complete and utter setup. What's going on here? I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again. But with this wedge line down, this 21 pointing down, the only redeemable thing that I saw today was that we are above the 5-day moving average. That's the only redeemable thing that we have, and that we have our first higher high that we haven't had in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. So there is something redeemable about today, but it's done on very little volume, and I really want to focus on this. So I use a 20 SMA line, and I'd recommend that you use the same. You can go out further and use the 30. I wouldn't use anything shorter unless you're really day trading. You're averaging about 100 million on this line. And today you're at about roughly, we're gonna call it roughly 60 million on the Qs. And I'm using the Qs just as a guide. But your volume's at about 40%. Now, if you go out there and you take a look at this and just focus on this line, and you can see this over 20 days. And look at how, or 20 points on a 15-minute. Look how it's come in. Look how little volume is going on out there. So what that does is that allows people that are trying to squeeze shorts to squeeze them fairly easy while everybody else gets out of the way. So I'm not saying that we didn't bottom. I would like nothing more to bottom, but what you need to focus on is you don't need to catch the exact bottom. You need to be able to make sure that you're there to fight another day. And buying into this with the CPI coming out tomorrow, where it's supposed to come in, at 0.5, if it comes in at 0.7 or 0.6, we could see a massive sell-off. And we need to be prepared for that and focus on that. Now, if you look at what's going on with the other indexes, you'll see the SPY. The SPY barely got above that 427 level. We barely got above that. We barely got above the 5-day. You have the same low volume that you're sitting right there. So there's very little to say or do there. IWM looks the best out of all of them. Clearly above the 5-day and sitting right on the 21, which the rest are not. It is the only one that has a flat line 21-day. So if we are to rally, I would be looking more towards small caps. But there's some things that you should just be focused on if you want to see if we're really going to rally. First thing you should be looking on is the VIX. Okay, yes, this is great. We're finally coming in. And at the end of this stay, because I am going to go through one more that we need to watch. We need to watch one more stock. So I'm going to make these videos a little longer from now on. There's too much going on to get these in 5 minutes. So I will try and cut them back down, but just FYI. Now, see this 32.71? Yes, you broke this. But you're still in this range. You're still not anywhere that is of substance. So let me just point out what I'm getting at here so you can see what I mean. Okay, so you see these levels? You're still just sitting right in here. So this is not that great of a move. Now compare this to the 10-year and what's going on in the 10-year. This is rallying up. Well, if this is rallying up to 2% ahead of CPI, what is that telling you? Why are people selling bonds? Where are they putting the money? They didn't put it in equities, so they're getting out of bonds ahead of the CPI number. This is the 10-year, and you're now at 194. To put this move in perspective, this was the move. You had an 11% move in 3 days on the yield. Now, I did say I want to go through one more because I keep looking at this trade, and I really like this trade. Now, this is a short, and I'm just going to walk through it, okay? So let's blow this up and get rid of these moving averages for a moment and talk about what's going on here. So despite the huge rally in the market today, this couldn't lift, and you're right on this trend line, and you're sitting right on this trend line. So I've got 3 days in a row where the open has been nothing but selling, right? If you get super technical about it, you've had 5 days in a row. 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, once again, you're sitting right on this wedge line. A break of this level right here, this 114, we're going to call it 113 3/4, can take you to this 75 level. Still, this trade is not dead. If anything, not getting above this 121 confirmed the trade.